Hello, and welcome to today's live stream about Beebo and Flat 5 and Hector. If, as always, you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Today, on our previous live streams, we have gone through every module. So yeah, if you ever want to find anything about any particular module, there are live streams about them. And just to recap that, if you find a module, for instance, warmth, a random one, if you go into its dots and press dots, it has a link here, a QR code, which will take you to a specific section of the live stream about that module. So yeah, if you're ever trying to get info about a particular module, there are now live streams on all of them. And yeah, you can find details about them just by going to the QR codes. There are also live streams that cover, every feature of Flat 5. There's a lot of live streams now covering MIDI, which is a regular question. So yeah, if you ever need to know anything about that, they're the things. There has been some updates and goings on lately for us. Yeah, we're attempting to work on some new exciting things, which we will have more details about in the not too distant future. Yeah, and it's good to see people posting some good content with good music and things with Flat 5 and with Beebo and with Hector. There's been a bit of action with all of them lately, which is great to see. Yeah, that's probably the blurb for this week. Again, yeah, if you ever got any questions, feel free to send them through. If there's things you want to see on the streams, that's me too. So yeah, we've covered a lot of stuff over the last months of streams, I have been contemplating what things are still needed. We haven't chatted much about synthesis, so we can chat a little bit more about that today and explore some options for synthesis and generative things like that. Again, if there's anything you want to see, feel free to ask. So I might just add a couple of sequences, show you how to do that, and then, because obviously, Beebo can do your guitar-y things, choruses and flanges and things like that. But one of the interesting things is when you start to modulate things, start to control modules from other modules. And synthesis is a good way to see that in action. So let's add some sequences first. I will add, maybe we'll add one of everything, I suspect. Let's add a note sequencer. Let's add a, we'll probably drop in a Euclidean as well, because we haven't shown that for a little while. And let's add I'll type in LFO and we'll see some of our range of options that have LFOs built in. And we'll see that the big fancy LFO is the looping envelope. So we might add one of them as well. And we'll have some of these driven off each other. And we might shift some of these notes around and quantize some of them for a bit of general excitement. So we'll also, to keep things under control, we'll add, actually no, we'll go in stereo. I'll add a wet dry at the end, because we are feeling like stereo today. We'll turn our level way down to start with. And we'll add some options to have some blends in our sequences and synthy things. And we might add a chaos controller so we can do some generative stuff and some stuff that is a bit more directed. So we're going to be able to create some rhythmic content with our Euclidean. We're going to be able to create some notes here with our sequencer here. We'll squidgle, just spray in some notes, and then we'll work out some actual sensible melodies. And then we'll drive these from the chaos controller. So that should be able to give us some excitement. We'll need some synthesis voices here. We've got a bunch of options, obviously, for voices. If we go into pitch and synth, we'll see that we have a few fun options for voices. Again, obviously you can do envelopes. We should have we might add a voice that has an envelope and a voice that just has the built-in triggering. Like things like resonators. If it's a physical model, it makes more sense that they, control the envelope in sorry. And for people who are less into synthy stuff, envelopes are things that control the volume over time. So if you're saying, oh well, this note has this particular envelope, it means like how does the volume change over time? So it's got an attack stage where it is the beginning of the sound. Then it's got other stages: sustain, delay, decay, release, depending on how many bits of the envelope you have. And obviously we can do all of those kind of things. But let's grab a multi-resonator because those are nice. And we'll do some things with this, and then we'll add some more craziness as we continue. So let's connect some of this up. We'll run our wet out. And we've got our volume right down so we won't deafen anybody. Shall I run into another VCA first? Maybe I will. It's just so in case later I want to have more chains. Control this one in a single spot. I'll route even and odd to this, then I'll leave that one as is. Just in case I want to control the level of this voice later. So we'll route this out to... we might try routing guitars and stuff along with these as well, so we can play along. So maybe we'll have this as the wet chain. I was originally thinking maybe having effects as well. Maybe we'll have multiple wet chains. Maybe we'll have another wet dry at the front. We'll see. Let's go for dry for the moment. And we're routing this one in mono, so we'll route that to dry right and left. Go over there. So that's going to be our multi-resonator. We'll start by just driving it from triggers to triggers. And then we'll have this also trigger a pitch change. And by going up to here, we'll push that T1 out and we'll put it into step. So this will step each time there is a trigger from that one. And we'll start with a little bit faster triggers. We might have some ratchets. And we'll add those in a bit. So we will now we'll have our note sequencer. We'll route that into the multi-resonator as pitch. So now we've got pitch and triggers coming out of here. So yeah, we'll start having like a basic synthesis environment here, and then just one sec, I'll just check levels over here. Okay, yep, I just remembered to route that to some speakers on my other side so I can actually hear what I'm doing. So we'll now, as we turn up our level here, we'll have blonking, synthesis. So you see this is moving through this chaotic random mess of notes here. So, this isn't very exciting so far. Obviously we can choose different voices here. We can start to modulate some of this. So, how does one modulate the parameters? Well, we connect up, we've got a looping envelope here and we've got a chaos controller here. So we've got a bunch of options for modulating parameters. Oh, and I am running out of the wrong out. There we go. Oops. Sorry about that. Now you have the newfound joy of stereo. So yeah. So we've got some stuff going on here already. I'll just turn that down a little bit while I babble. So we've got notes. So the actual pitch is coming from the note sequencer, and then the tempo, the gates and the triggers, the actual when the notes happen, is coming from the chaos controller. It, however, is a bit lacking excitement as far as changing over time. So you can add those in with things like either the looping envelope here. So we're going to have things being able to change over time with just these envelopes. We can do some slow changes with the very low, less than 1 hertz kind of hertz. Hertz? Is a single hertz a hertz? Or is it still hertz? Anyway, so you can have some very low, slow oscillation. If we connect these up to something in the multi-resonator. So we can connect one of our outputs here, and maybe structure is going to be interesting. All right, and we'll go into here, we'll crank our thingy up, make it move around, and we change it to oscillations. We could also do this as an envelope, so it could be triggered by things occasionally and change when it's triggered. And we might actually see both. We'll have a go at both. So we'll start off with it just being a thing that happens, and then we'll change over to it being triggered. So you'll notice it's not doing anything at the moment. Why is this? Because there is these things. Some of the modules have got built-in what are called attenuverters, so things that control the amount of modulation. If some of the modules don't have these built in, then you can just add one in between your modulation source if you want to control how much level it's doing. So we connected that up to structure, so now we can. And you see we're modulating structure over time. But it's just happening continuously. It's not happening when the notes occur. So instead, if we want this to happen when the notes occur, we can change this to be these envelopes instead of the oscillations. See, it's stopped happening now. But if we connect this guy up, our trigger output, we're just using the same trigger output, and we set it up to trigger this guy. I might want to keep this knob on this slider on a knob, I mean. So I might expose this one to spotlight. And then if I go into spotlight, I might bind that so it's always available on the left knob. Now I can always have fine control over my levels. I'll just have the knob dedicated to that. See how we're getting like a lot more going on now? Just because we've started modulating a little bit. And now we can modulate on other triggers if we want from the Chaos controller. We've also got lots of other outputs. And then you can start to get much more interesting elements. However, it's also it's still quite repetitious at the moment, because we're only using one output of the Chaos controller, and all of our modulation is based on things that are coming off that output. If instead we grabbed it off a different output, we'd get quite different results. So we'll try that now. I'm going to disconnect this T1. See, it's calmed down a lot. If I grab it off T2 instead and connect that up to trigger, the different triggers are going to happen at different times. And we've got options to control how those different outputs behave. So you can do those ratchet kind of effects like that. So I've just been changing how the triggers kind of behave. Obviously, we can start to add effects to this now as well. And we've just got one voice at the moment. We can add another voice in here. Let's duplicate this VCA. And I'll grab a macro oscillator. And then I'll run that into our, oh, did I cut? I'm not sure if I connected main or aux. I connected aux, all right. Out. Do this VCA. So we can have different voices in here. And again, we can trigger these off a separate trigger. Going to trigger. And we can have one of these X's here connected up to pitch. Connect up to pitch, volt per octave in this case it's called. Now we're going to get triggers from both of them. We're going to get notes that kind of work together. So we can connect this up. We could connect this up to, if we wanted to have blends between the two different voices, we could connect that up to the dry of this one or the wet of this one. At the moment we've got these both connected up to dry, so we might just run this into dry as well. See here our new notes. There's a bit of things going on there now. They're a bit dull though at the moment. So let's much longer decay there. And yeah, right. We probably, and I reckon we have that bigger and lower. So that's yeah, that's chunkier sounding. Maybe all the way down there is a little huge. If you want specific numbers, of course, you can press this and you can type one in. For example, we might want to go for -3. And let's now spread this out so we actually get different notes. So as we spread more, we'll get more range in our notes. They'll be quantized by this smoothness thing here over here. So we can quantize those harder if we just turn our smoothness up. So yeah, there's a little multi-voice synthesizer. Generative patch thing, and as you add more, either things with things like the looping envelope, let's add one of them into here. Let's do about 4 into timber. So yeah, you've got some options here. Again, currently they're just kind of random notes, right? We can start to quantize these as well. And we can start to add things into one of these patterns. We can add patterns together, of course, to get more interesting effects. Like, we could add one of these notes from this one onto this note sequencer so they can change over time, but have a somewhat controlled bass melody. So, so we've just got that random bass things happening now. And on this one we've got this lead kind of section. Obviously some hi-hats or something would be quite nice and make this a little bit more exciting. You can of course do drums with the macro oscillator. Yeah, you'll see I still have plenty of CPU left to do a chain of drums. Yeah, which you could add in. So yeah, if that's, you know, just a rough idea of how to do a generative synthesis patch with a couple of voices and a couple of ways to add in things going on with sequencing chaos envelopes into multiple voices. You can, of course, then, you know, obviously there's tons of parameters that can be modulated, and there's lots of effects you can add on, and you can control things, obviously, from MIDI and from things like Strum. So if you want to actually start having some control over some of these voices, I think the last thing I'll show is I might show that. Might show, yeah, playing against that one. So we'll get rid of that note sequencer. We might still have the random craziness going on here. We'll disconnect the trigger, the Strum one there, and I'll add Strum. There are a few things that do strumming, but I want the actual one called Strum. There we go. And I'll strum this. We can turn this up a little bit, so we have random bass that we can attempt to play along with. And we will connect the gate from Strum up to Strum, and then we will gate the volt per octave to pitch. And then we will turn up the PC. That's kind of fun. And obviously, you can go up and down octaves here. We'll go for sevenths, dom sevenths, or minor seventh. I would prefer a melody for that bass part though, so it's a bit more controlled, perhaps the word I'm looking for there. You know, like, does what I tell it to a little bit more. So I would add probably a sequencer, a note sequencer up to that one. So it's a bit more, you know, under control. Let's crank that right. Tuned bass drums. That's relatively chunky. For your tuned bass needs. And the last thing, I'll grab some hi-hats. Route them out to the same one. So they're just ing away. So we'll grab a T from here. Oh, I wanted this one. We've got a lot of options that are kind of cheeky, like that kind of sound. So because we've got this particle noise and stuff as well, or filtered noise, granular cloud. Let's change this pattern. Some kind of ratchet style stuff. So yeah, some vaguely percussive stuff, and some melodies, either driven from stuff you're actually playing, or from chaos, or sequences, or all of those things. There's a bunch of things you can do with the synthesis options in Beebo and in Hector, and obviously you can see we've still got a little bit of CPU left, so we haven't got a ton, truthfully. There's a lot going on. There's two different big synthesis voices, and then there's the resonator voice, which is quite heavy because it's physical modeling. And then we've got a bunch of other stuff running. But, that's some of the capabilities you can have, either through all these different synthesis voices, things like the resonators. So if anybody's got any questions, ask them now, please. Otherwise, I think that will be the end for this little bit of an excursion into synthesis. If there's things you want to see in future videos, please ask. Otherwise, that's a little bit of synthesis. thank you very much for watching today's live stream.